Well, hello there, geography fans. So, following on from talking about urbanization, we're going to look at an example of a large city in a newly emerging economy. That city is Rio de Janeiro, and it is in the country of Brazil in South America. Rio de Janeiro is located on the coastline in a natural deep-water port called Guanabara Bay. Guanabara Bay. And this has actually allowed Rio de Janeiro to develop 5 ports where all kinds of exports can be sent out to the rest of the world from on large container ships. So, for example, coffee, sugar, and iron ore are the main exports headed out of the ports of Rio de Janeiro and to the markets around the world, particularly China, Europe, and North America. In our city of Rio de Janeiro, we have a population of 6.45 million people, and that was at 2016. And that was at 2016, so chances are it's grown a little bit since then. Rio de Janeiro accounts for 5% of Brazil's GDP. That's the gross domestic product. And in particular, we have services such as banking. Draw a nice stable bank with its strong thief-proof pillars. So banking is a major service industry that is found in Rio de Janeiro, but also we have financial services and insurance. So lots of different services to do with the economy of Brazil and indeed the wider region. As well as services, we have manufacturing, and the things that Rio de Janeiro specialises in are chemicals, like nice chemical models that will be used in things like fertilisers or dyes, lots of different things. Also, we can have pharmaceuticals, another major industry of Brazil or of Rio de Janeiro, producing medicines for the global market. Manufacture of clothing is also another major industry found in Rio de Janeiro. It's cheap and plentiful workforce, making this a great opportunity for businesses to set up and take advantage of cheap labour. And finally, we have processed foods. Things like tins of food or packaged foods. One of Rio de Janeiro's other big manufacturing industries. Let me just write those in for you. So summarising the the manufacturing industries, we have chemicals, pharmaceuticals, clothing. Now, the other big industry that's operating in Rio de Janeiro is tourism, and there are a number of reasons for that that make it an international destination. So the first is that Rio de Janeiro is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, protected for its unique culture, buildings, there we go, protected for its unique culture and buildings, and recognised as a thing of great international importance. So tourists flood with their little cameras to try and take pictures and capture themselves having a lovely time in this world city. It also has other attractions, like a huge statue of Jesus Christ, strongly Catholic country, and it's called Christ the Redeemer. And it's actually one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. So, Christ the Redeemer sits high atop a mountain overlooking the city of Rio de Janeiro for all to see. They have many other things that the tourists can get involved in as well. So every year there's the Rio Carnival. Think Notting Hill, but oh so much bigger. With lots of dancing, parade, feathers, hula hooping, you get the picture. And that's a particularly busy time in Rio de Janeiro in terms of tourism. They also have stunning scenery with a national park that is actually in the city itself, and I'll show you that in just a second, and beaches of world fame, beautiful sands, clear waters, tropical climate. What is not to love? This is an ideal holiday destination, mixing culture as well as beauty and luxury as well. So this is all contributing to our tourism industry. So as you're beginning to see, this international city of Rio de Janeiro has lots of economic opportunity coming from sectors like tourism, financial services, and manufacturing. And those economic opportunities, of course, generate jobs and also a very fertile environment for businesses to set up and be successful in. This, of course, attracts people from within Brazil, the region, and the wider world. So, for example, many people from the Amazon basin in Brazil will undertake rural to urban migration in search of a better job. We also have people from the region, so South America, countries like Argentina and Bolivia. They will also be looking for business opportunities and jobs. From further afield, More recently there's an increasing number of Koreans and Chinese looking for economic opportunity, and also citizens of the USA and UK in the highly skilled sectors of finance and industry. So with all of this inward migration focusing on Rio de Janeiro, the population will be increasing, the economy is growing, and its importance as an international city is also increasing. But before we do, of course, a few questions about Rio de Janeiro. First of all, where is Rio de Janeiro located? Good, it's a big city in Brazil, but what is the continent that it is on, and what is the name of the bay that it is situated at? That's right, South America, and it is Guanabara Bay. Important to include those details. Tell me some of the services that can be found operating in Rio de Janeiro. Good, there's banking, financial services, and insurance businesses. How about manufacturing? Name 2 manufacturing industries found in Rio de Janeiro. Yeah, you could have taken your pick. Chemicals, pharmaceuticals, clothing, or processed food. And what percentage of Brazil's GDP does Rio de Janeiro contribute? 5%. Excellent. Well done. And it is, of course, a major port, and the exports that we can expect to leave Brazil through this port and head to international markets are, yes, well done, coffee, sugar, and iron ore. Finally, tell me why Rio de Janeiro is such a popular location for tourists, and develop this answer a little bit, please. That's right, exactly, lots of information. Rio de Janeiro is popular for tourism because it has things such as the Christ the Redeemer statue, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world. It's been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It has exciting entertainment such as the Rio Carnival, as well as beautiful scenery and beaches and a tropical climate. All of these factors lead to lots of people migrating to Rio de Janeiro to take advantage of these economic opportunities. Tell me 2 regional countries that people migrate from in search of taking advantage of the economic opportunities. Yes, good. Argentina and Bolivia are both countries in the same South American region. How about further afield, more international people or nationalities that have been attracted to Rio de Janeiro? Very good. So the Koreans and the Chinese looking for business opportunities, and then more highly skilled workers from USA, UK, probably the rest of the EU, who are specialising in finance or in particular aspects of industry. Good. Right, let's move on and zoom in on the zones of Rio de Janeiro. So we start off by looking at Guanabara Bay, zoomed in here. And this is the bay that Rio de Janeiro developed around. And it first started, or the first area to be developed, and the oldest, is known as the Centro, or the Central region of Rio de Janeiro. This is the Centro. And as I mentioned, this is the oldest part of Rio de Janeiro. It is where the CBD can be found. That stands for Central Business District. And this is where you'll find all the kind of large shops, lots of office space, and where most of the commerce is undertaken. In fact, it's here that you can find some of Brazil's largest national companies. It's also the financial centre. Outside of the central area, we have some other zones named after the points of the compass. So, in the south, you'll be very surprised to learn that we have the southern zone. Now this is the place to be. This is an exclusive neighbourhood with a high point called Sugarloaf Mountain. Let me just label it so we're under no doubt. This is the South Zone. For all you sun lovers, this is where you can find those beautiful, picturesque, postcard perfect Brazilian beaches with their tropical waters, lovely to swim in, all those beach bronzed bodies, lots of outdoor gyms, so people looking toned and fit. It is the place to be seen if you have the money. So an example would be Copacabana Beach, world famous, and people will travel a long way to go to there. This is also where you'll find the luxury hotels and expensive private residences. This is the place to be if you have the money. Neighbouring these two zones, and basically in the middle of the city, which is very unusual, there are not many cities in the world that have a national park at their centre, and this is the Tijuca National Forest Park. One of the reasons why this southern zone is so exclusive and expensive, and also another reason that tourists find Rio de Janeiro such a beautiful city to visit and holiday in. To the west of the Tijuca National Park, we have the surprisingly named West Zone. Now this is a zone that has slightly mixed use and characteristics. So it's a place where you can find some heavy industry and near that industry you can find some low quality housing. It's also a place that was regenerated and where many of the Olympic stadia were built when Rio de Janeiro hosted the Olympics just after London, so that would make it 2012.
It's 2016, you fool!
And finally, you have a neighbourhood here called Barra da Tijuca, which used to be a lower class neighbourhood, but owing to the regeneration because of the Olympics, its proximity to the park and to the South Zone, this has become a wealthy coastal suburb. So cities change, and as they grow and develop, different areas that were once poor or industrial can become highly desirable. But that isn't without the government actively planning to invest in that area, as they did with the Olympics. And then finally, to the north, we have, you will never guess, the North Zone. So let's put that here, North Zone. Back down again. And in the North Zone, this is where we find the main ports. So where many of those exports that we discussed earlier are leaving Brazil from. Ports are generally noisy, busy and dirty places, so that might give you some idea as to the value of the area for housing. And indeed you don't get much of the nice housing, but you do get a lot of the informal settlements or shanty towns that can be called favelas. And there is also the international airport here. I'll try and draw a little plane, help lodge that in the brain. Well, that's kind of plane-like. There we go. So, these are the zones of Rio de Janeiro. And it's helpful when talking about Rio de Janeiro as your case study to be able to refer to those zones and where things might be happening. So if you were talking about tourism and an area that would be popular for tourists, which zone would you talk about? Good, the South Zone. And why? What is it that's going to attract tourists to that area? Yes, that's where you've got the beautiful beaches like Copacabana, you've got hotels, there's attractions like Sugarloaf Mountain and the Tijuca National Forest Park just on your doorstep. So a very beautiful area to stay, to appreciate Rio de Janeiro. What about when we need to be talking about some of the social problems faced in Brazil by many of these poor migrants that have arrived from rural areas? Where are those social problems likely to be most apparent? Good, in the North Zone, because that's where we have a lot of industry, where the main port is, and where these favelas and shanty towns have grown up. High density housing, often without many services, and so the kind of economic indicators and the social indicators there tend to be quite low. People die a bit younger, crime rates are high, education is poor. These are the area where social problems are probably most evident and in need of addressing. If you are going to talk about an area that has successfully changed its character and improved over time, which area might you refer to? Good, the West Zone. And what was it that has driven a lot of that change to that area? Good, the investment in the Olympic Stadia and the regeneration of that area. Can you give me an example of a neighbourhood that underwent that change from a lower class area to a wealthy coastal suburb? It says it right there, Barra da Tijuca. Well done. Okay, finally, if you're talking about those international companies, the multinational companies, or workers highly skilled from the USA and the UK, which part of Rio de Janeiro are they going to be most interested in locating in and working in? Great, that's going to be the Centro region, that oldest part of Brazil where the central business district is, all those financial centres and the commerce. Very nice. So what I suggest you do is write yourself a paragraph of around 10 lines that describes the different zones of Rio de Janeiro, using as many of the place names as you can from memory, and if you need to, reference back to my diagram. So this would be a good way to try and commit the spatial layout of Rio de Janeiro to your memory. Excellent. Well done, and happy revising.